Hi, I'm Ansel Van Horn, Chris's friend, and Chris is the only guy I know that's ever done a CrossFit WOD in a Speedo. But first, check this out.
Today, I am consistently earning over $10,000 per month, and still really exciting to know that you've built this business where, you're earning $10,000. That's amazing to me. I still get so excited.
My guest on the show today is my very own virtual assistant, Kayla Sloan. Now, Kayla pretty much does everything behind the scenes for Money Peach. We're going to talk about exactly what she does, what her roles are, but I wanted her to come on the show to talk about how she became a virtual assistant. You see, so many times people ask me, Chris, what are some ways that I could generate extra income? Well, Kayla was asking herself that a few years ago, and now today she earns over $10,000 every single month by helping people with their blogs, with their YouTube channels, with their social media, with their podcast, whatever it might be. Kayla fills that void with being a virtual assistant, and she's on the show to talk about exactly how she's doing it and how you can get started. So without further ado, let me bring on Kayla Sloan, the virtual assistant for Money Peach. So Kayla, at the end of every single episode, the funny thing is I say, without Kayla Sloan and Steve Stewart, this show would not be possible. And now I actually get to have Kayla on the show, which means we're probably going to have Steve on the show too. But Kayla, thank you so much for finally coming on the Money Peach podcast.
I'm so excited to be here, Chris. I have been listening to the show as part of my work for you, but also for fun. And I've really enjoyed some of your episodes. So I was really honored when you asked me to be on the show.
Well, you've been around with Money Peach probably longer than anybody else. You started, helping me out. I think the first 5 months I started it as a little blog. So you've kind of seen, the podcast start and everything grow. So, but I think that what's going to be helpful for people in this episode is your story about becoming a virtual assistant and how you and I met, but also how you now have a full-time income. You generate a full-time living by doing what you love. So, but before we jump into all that, just kind of give us a little bit of a background of who is Kayla Sloan?
Absolutely. I am, as Chris said, his assistant. And actually, I think we met in 2015. So it's been a long time. When I got started working as a virtual assistant, I was in a really bad place with my money. I had a ton of debt, and so I decided that I had to side hustle to make some extra money and help me get my bills paid off as fast as possible. I was doing the debt snowball method, which some of you may already know. I know, Chris, you talked about it a little bit too. And so I was trying to pay off all of my debt. I was hustling. I didn't have anything left over at the end of the month if I didn't work extra outside of my full-time job. And so I started my own blog to document my journey and decided at first that I wanted to be a freelance writer. So I started writing for a few people, and then I actually had a client ask me, she said, "You seem really organized. Have you thought about being a virtual assistant instead of only a writer?" And I was like, I don't even know what that is. But she told me she would pay me for it. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to figure it out because this sounds fun. It sounds like something I can do. And at that time, I was all about earning extra money any way that I could.
And that's right around when I met you. You were more of like a freelance writer, just kind of jumping into the world of being a virtual assistant. So tell us, what was the name of that blog, and do you still have it? The first one you had about documenting your journey as far as paying off debt and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I started my blog. It was called Shoeaholic No More, and I started it in December 2013. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't have it anymore in that original sense. So if you try to go to it today, it will redirect you to my new website, which is just under my name, so kaylasloan.com. I really transitioned into that because when I started my blog, it was just this personal journey, and I really shared, my thoughts and my feelings, but I never thought of it as a business. When I got started freelance writing and working as a virtual assistant, I decided I needed to have a little bit more of a professional brand as I approached clients like Chris and others. So that's why I kind of transitioned away from it. But all of my old content is still there. So, it's there as an inspiration to people who find me. It's there as a reminder to me as to how far I've come. And it's been amazing to see because I looked back on an old post the other day and I was like, first of all, I knew nothing about blogging. Like, it was the most terribly written post ever. But it was real and it was honest. And it was a good reminder of where I've come from over these last few years.
I think that's important that you mentioned that, is having more of a professional feel. And I'm not saying you have to be like the most professional, username or email address, but I've come across so many people just recently. This is a true story. I asked somebody for their email address, and their email address, I don't even know if I want to say it because you'll probably email them. So I'm not going to tell you the domain, but it was diaperrash@blank.com. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was like, diaper rash. I'm like, you're going to have a difficult time, if generating a business with a name like Diaper Rash. And I might be way off. Maybe that is like, the name. So I think it's, if you can use something like Kayla Sloan, because it just does sound more professional. But going back to what you talked about, freelance writing, where were you working full time while you were trying to side hustle? Where were you at then?
I was working as a credit analyst for a agricultural lending company. So it's called Farm Credit. There's farm credit associations all across the United States. And so I was working at my local one in my hometown here in Kansas. And I wasn't really feeling fulfilled. And that was a big portion of it too, was that I wasn't feeling creatively fulfilled. I didn't love my job. I don't want to say I hated it. It was a good job. I learned a lot. Ironically, I learned some things about money while I was there since I was a credit analyst. But my own finances were a disaster. And so my blog really started as a way to fulfill that need for creativity, as well as to document my journey as I worked my way out of debt. At my lowest point, it is really when I got started, because I wasn't sleeping through the night, because I didn't know if I was going to have any money left in my account, if it would be negative the next day when I woke up, if I was going to be able to pay for groceries, if my card was going to be rejected when I swiped it. It was very stressful. And I did a late night Google search and happened upon a personal finance blog. And I just stayed up way too late reading it. But I just really related to her journey and her story. And that was actually my friend Melanie over at DearDebt.com. And she has just been an inspiration to me ever since then. So that's really where I found out about personal finance blogs. I had no idea people did that. And so I decided to start my own anonymously to kind of share my journey. And I wanted to be very transparent. And even though I'm not anonymous today, I still try to be as transparent as possible about my income, my expenses, budgeting, debt, everything. Even as I've grown my own business to be self-employed, transparency is something that I value, because I want people to be able to learn and see what it's really like to do some of these things. Being transparent is my way to be as honest as possible about everything to do with finances.
So speaking of transparency, what kind of debt were you facing? Like when you say it was dire straits, what kind of financial situation were you guys facing? Or are you facing?
Well, I graduated college, and 6 months later, my student loans kicked in. I had about $10,000 of credit card debt. I only had $8,000 of student loans, which is not bad compared to a lot of my peers. But then I also took on a mortgage. And at my lowest point, I had $148,000 of debt.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of income did you have when you were the credit analyst?
I was earning just over $2,000 a month.
So about $24,000, $25,000 a year?
Yes, it was my take home.
Okay, so that's you're getting kind of squeezed in all different directions with a $25,000 income when you have $148,000 in debt.
Yes.
So I can see that. So you start with your blog. Now, when you started freelance, like people always say, how do you make money blogging? And I the first thing I say is you don't make any money blogging when you start, right? No one just starts a blog and starts generating income. It takes time, takes a lot of effort, it takes consistency. But you can generate income by becoming a freelance writer, and you can do that relatively quick. So we had Greg and Holly from Club Thrifty on, and that's how they got started. She was just a freelance writer, and now she's one of the top freelance writers out there. It's so funny. I'll read like a MSN or Go Banking Rates, and it's like, oh, there's Holly. There's Holly. So
yes.
So how, the reason why I want to ask you this is because I know so many people. I was just talking with a lady the other day, and I said, do you like writing? And she says, yes. And I said, man, you should think about freelance writing. And she goes, well, I'm not qualified. That's what I wanted to kind of break that barriers. What qualified you to become a freelance writer?
Okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I don't think anybody is unqualified to be a freelance writer. As long as you have a decent understanding of English grammar, word choice, spelling, those type of things, those elementary skills, you can be a freelance writer. You don't have to have a college degree in journalism. You don't have to have any of that higher education necessarily to get started. Really what you need is a passion and a work ethic and just that basic understanding of English as a language, basically.
So I wanted you to say that. I totally agree. When I was talking to this lady the other day, I told her, I said, well, what qualifies you is what qualifies me. I'm a firefighter. I started my own blog where I started writing, and then that turned into, writing for other publications. And, so I've told people, like, look, there's a firefighter here who writes personal finance articles that have been on, I don't know, like Forbes and Entrepreneur and Business Insider. And that doesn't make sense, right? Like, how to explain this the right way is a firefighter should not be writing personal finance articles for these sites, but he is. And the reason why I'm saying that is you don't have to be qualified. You don't have to have a college degree in journalism. And if you don't believe me, look at Kayla, right? Kayla, you got freelance jobs. So when you were getting your freelance jobs, as far as when I say freelance jobs, is were you going and approaching people and asking them if, they would like somebody to write for their site? How did that work?
That is absolutely how I got started. So, when I started my own blog just as a hobby, and I had absolutely no idea that people made money from blogging or from freelance writing. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And I started reading people's income reports, actually. A big one for me was Michelle from Making Sense of Sense. And at the time, she was freelancing as a portion of her main portion of her online income was from freelancing. And her income reports really opened up my eyes to say, wow, I didn't know this was possible. And I didn't know you could make this much money from home. And since I already really enjoyed writing and I've always enjoyed it as a hobby, and like I wrote for the college paper and got paid a little bit for that when I was in school, but I didn't major in that. I didn't set out to be a journalist. So to me, it was just a natural fit of something I enjoy doing, something I'm fairly decent at. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try this out and see if I can make some money. So I sent emails to 3 or 4 bloggers I had come to know in the personal finance community. We had, communicated on social media. We had commented on each other's blog posts and things like that. And just reached out to them and said, do you know anyone looking for a freelance writer? I really want to get started. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to give this a try. Luckily, 2 of them actually responded back and said, yes, I actually need a writer myself. And so that's really how I got my start, was just kind of putting it out there, reaching out to people that I already knew, using my existing network to get started.
So in the very beginning then, what were your rates as far as for writing?
When I started out as a freelance writer, I was charging about $15 an article for 500 words. It didn't include anything fancy. It didn't include a ton of like research or statistics or, pretty images for Pinterest or anything like that. This was just like your basic, what I would call soft personal finance, where, it might be my take on tips to save at the grocery store, or my experience with different types of personal finance topics.
The reason why I brought that up is, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, $15 doesn't seem like that much money. But here's what you got to think about. There's somebody that approached me recently and they wanted to write for the Money Peach blog, and they wanted to do it at a very, very low rate. And I knew why, but the reason why people want to do this at a low rate is they want to build up a portfolio, right? They want to show that I've written for, these 20 sites, and here's the links to the articles. So then when they start going to pitch, where they're going to, try to land a freelance gig, they have this portfolio of writing that's wonderful. And you know what? It was a win-win because they got paid for it just a little bit. The publisher, like myself, is happy because, that's one of the things is trying to find writers to keep up the content schedule. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I enjoy writing, don't be afraid. Reach out to people. And I would say this, don't write for free. Because if somebody were to email me and say, I want to write a free article, I'm like, no, this is too good to be true. There's some kind of catch, and I would probably ignore it. But if you said, I know typically, rates are, I don't know, we'd say $50 for 1,000 words, and I want to do it for 20. And here's the reason why. I want to do it for $20 so I can build up my portfolio. Here's where I've been featured so far if you've been in 1 or 2 spots, and build your way up. And now Kayla, I mean, you make really good money.
Yeah, I mostly work as a virtual assistant now. I don't do very much writing anymore, but I did actually get a writing job the other day for, I think we need a drum roll for this one, for $600.
For how many words?
Per post. Yeah, they capped it out at 1,500 words.
That's awesome. See, there you go. There you go. So Holly and Greg Johnson, when they were on the podcast, this is about a year ago they were on, they said Holly makes over $100,000 a year strictly in freelance writing. Now, over the years, she, her rates have gone, really, really high, but she didn't start there. But the point is now instead of working for corporate America in a full-time job, she works from home at her laptop, or she works from their travel people. They travel all over the world. She'll be in Fiji on her laptop writing an article and still generating income. So it is a pretty cool model. So now, you go from freelance writing. So tell me how you kind of transition into the world of being a virtual assistant, how you and I mostly work together.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started out as a writer, and I was working with a couple of bloggers as a freelance writer, and I noticed that one of them seemed to have trouble sticking to her deadlines. So she would ask me to write some articles for her, and I would do that, and of course, make sure I have them turned in on time and all of those good things that a freelance writer should do. And she wasn't getting them published, and so they were just sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And so I would reach out to her and say, hey, I wanted to check in on this. Did I complete the work as you expected, or was there something wrong with my article? I noticed you haven't published them yet. She would be like, oh, no, I'm just running behind, And so then I was like, well, is there something else I can help you with? And just that question, just putting it out there to the universe, I think is a big part of being successful, because a lot of people don't take that first step. They don't take that first step to reach out to people and ask them if they need help, or to, have a friendly tone behind it, I think is a big part of it too. Don't go into things with dollar signs in your eyes. Yes, we all want to make money. Definitely, we do. But if you go in with this service attitude of how can I help you, I think that goes so much further in helping you build a strong business with clients that respect you, with clients that you value and whose missions you really believe in. And it just really, to me, has helped me get to where I am today.
As you're saying this, I'm just picturing this is exactly how you've approached everything. So I guess we've worked together for over 2 years now. So everything is always, am I doing this right? How can I do it better? And what else do you need? If you're someone who's out there who's starting a blog, or you're starting, some kind of business online, I mean, there are so many things that can get piled up so quickly that it can become overwhelming. And you just start kind of going in freak out mode. Like, I can't do anything else anymore. It is so refreshing when somebody says, what would you like me to help you with? Is there anything else I can do? And then you even go sometimes as far as, how about I start doing this? And you can kind of see it with me that, yeah, I need help with this because I am running out of time. You always say this at the perfect time. So one tidbit I would pick up if you're thinking about becoming a virtual assistant is look for your clients' not weakness, but where they're maybe running out of time or struggling the most, and just mention it. And don't feel guilty about mentioning it, because they're just so slammed with work or with overwhelmed that just that right there is so refreshing to have somebody say, why don't I start making all the images for the site? Or why don't I start responding to emails? Or what? And you're just like, wow, this would be huge. And it's such a huge help.
Hey guys, Chris Peach here. Hey, did you know Andrew and I were once living paycheck to paycheck and we had racked up $52,000 in consumer debt in only 4 years of marriage? Yeah, we were normal until we hit rock bottom. You see, since that moment, we decided to stop borrowing money, stop using credit cards, pay with cash, and then we did the unthinkable and we paid off $52,000 in only 7 months. Sounds crazy, right? Well, maybe not as crazy as working nonstop to send all of our money to the bank in the form of payments. Here's the deal. I'm hosting a free workshop where I share our story and I show you the same step-by-step method to going from broke to debt-free and then on to building wealth. So head on over to moneypeach.com/workshop to grab your spot in this free online training that I promise you are going to absolutely love. Once again, that's moneypeach.com/workshop.
So the next question I have, Kayla, is how do you know how to be a virtual assistant? Where did you learn, WordPress is probably the most common platform out there for websites, but where did you learn, the skills to be using WordPress or for image design or for putting a post together, all these type things?
For me, since I started out as a blogger myself, I really got to play around with WordPress on my own site. And then I feel like that really saved my skin a few times because any of those stupid mistakes you make as a newbie blogger, I got to make those on my own site. So I didn't have to worry about doing that to a client's. But the other thing I think is, don't be afraid because I still make mistakes sometimes. The other day I coded something wrong on somebody's site. I don't do a lot of coding, but just enough to be scary. And I still have to reach out to people for help. And so I think really the key to learning is to just try it out, just do it. And, having that experience and that background as a blogger myself, I was able to already have that basic set of skills when I got started. My first few clients, I did have to get some more training. They had to show me different things. They would, record screencast videos, or one of them actually purchased a training course for me about some social media image creation and things like that I was able to go through. And that's one of my favorite things about being a virtual assistant is by working with different clients over the years, I get paid to learn. I get paid to take training sometimes. I get paid to learn new tools. I learn new skills. I get to see behind the scenes of their business, what they're doing to be successful. And those are things I can use in my own business too. So as I learn things from clients about different tools or strategies, then I can turn around and use that on my own website because I'm still growing my own, business website and blog as well. My dream is partially to have some passive income from my website. And so being able to learn some of those skills from clients along the way has been very valuable.
Kayla, what would you recommend to somebody getting started? We'll just talk about this. Some of the tools and resources that you think would be beneficial. And I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but let's say that somebody's listening to this and they're sitting here, they're driving their car, they're jogging or whatever, and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I think this is something that I can do. Because let's be honest, a virtual assistant, you work from home, correct?
Yes. I work from home.
So that's a huge benefit, right? You're able to work from home. And it's not, you have to put in hours, but you're not scheduled from 9 to 5, right? You can take a break during the day, pick up kids from school. So there are some freedoms there that you have as a virtual assistant. Now, with that said, if somebody's thinking to themselves, okay, this is something that I think I want to try out, like what are some of the resources that you recommend out there to just not to overwhelm somebody, but just kind of the basic fundamentals resources that we have?
The other thing I would chime in really quickly too is what I like about being a virtual assistant is that you can do it as much or as little as you want. So I've turned it into this full-time job for myself, but it could have just as easily stayed a side hustle for me or for anyone else. And so when you're talking about scheduling, it's awesome to me that you can do it on your own time and what works for you. So, you can do it while your kids are napping or while they're in bed in the evenings after you've put them to sleep or, whatever works for your schedule. So I think that's something that's awesome about being a virtual assistant. And then as far as tools and resources and skills, I really think what you need to get started isn't complicated. You need to know some basic computer skills. Almost everybody has them these days because everybody's online all the time. How to use social media, how to use, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, a basic understanding of how those things work. You can learn how to tweak them a little bit to use for business versus personal, but overall, just an understanding of social media is very helpful for a beginner VA. And those are things you can learn on your own. You don't really need a tool or a training course for those. And then, some of the tools that I use with my clients that you could learn yourself before you get started are social media scheduling tools. There's several different ones out there. Some of them are free, so you can play around with those yourself and kind of figure them out, such as Hootsuite or Buffer. Those are two that are free that some of my clients use. And then a task management system is essential. So Chris and I actually use one. It's called Asana, and we use the free version, and it's very powerful for a free software. They do have a paid version, but I've never had to use it, and I've been using Asana for 3 years.
Yeah, Asana is a game changer. So yeah, if you could train yourself in Asana, and it's Asana, we're going to put links to everything she talks about in the show notes. But yeah, Asana has been a game changer. Basically, think of it as a giant project management calendar sheet of paper, but it's in the cloud and we can see it in real time. And I can say, hey, Kayla, can you edit this or assign this? And it tags each other and it notifies us through email or however you want to set it up. There's a mobile version. It is extremely powerful and it's free, which is, awesome. And that's another thing too, I think people need to realize is, there's so many different types of businesses that you can get started in to generate income. But one thing I will say about being a virtual assistant is there's not a lot of overhead in the beginning or at all.
Exactly. Really. Right. You choose to have your own website, you might have to pay for a domain name and hosting and things like that. And I know Chris has written a really good guide about how to do those types of things. So if you're not technical, you don't have to have a lot of technical skills. You could be a technical virtual assistant, but you don't have to be. I will tell you, I am not the most technical person, and I am a full-time virtual assistant. So you don't have to be super techie to work online at all. Yeah, you can definitely do it without a lot of expenses. So if you have your own website, you might have a little bit of expense. You will need a computer, but most of us have those already. So there's not a lot that you have to spend to get started.
Besides a computer, are we talking a couple $100s?
Other than the computer, I would say, yeah, probably so. I'm trying to think what all I used when I got started. Not much other than the computer I already had. You need to make sure you do have a real mouse, I would say, because I didn't have one. I was using a laptop and I did some damage to my wrists actually with the trackpad, clicking too much. Yeah. So make sure you have a real mouse. I would recommend that.
Okay. So there you go. The startup is very affordable, very affordable.
Very.
All right.
Very.
So we've talked about, you freelance writing, side hustling. Okay. So what was the point where you were able to go from leaving your job as the credit analyst to becoming a full-time virtual assistant? When did that happen?
I started freelancing in July 2014. When I first started, I didn't think of it as something that could be full-time for me. I really just thought of it as something extra. I was talking with one of my friends who was a client and a freelancer in September of that year. And she really opened my eyes to say, I think you've got the skills and the drive to make this a full-time thing. And so I said, well, I guess I'm going to try it. So I really ramped it up, started putting my services out there more, started looking for more clients, trying to learn new skills, get some more training, things like that. By July 2015, 12 months later, I quit my full-time job.
And how scary is it to take that leap? Because I've talked to a few other people and they've all made that leap. We had Robert Farrington from College Investor. He was working at Target full-time as a manager and doing a blog at night. And his income with his blog had passed his job as a manager 4 years earlier, but he never left because he had he was afraid to leap, he said. And so what was that like to leap away from your steady, consistent income into being your own boss?
For me, it was very scary, but also very exciting. I will say as a single person, I don't know if it's more or less scary. I can't tell the other side of the story, but for me as a single person, not having anyone else's income to rely on as a backup to help pay the bills every month was very scary. And so I was happy that my business income had completely replaced my full-time job. It hadn't exceeded it yet, but it had fully replaced it. And even then, it was still very scary because, you kind of get used to that extra money. So you find yourself going from making $2,000 at your day job to making $2,000 at your day job and $2,000 from your business. For the few months I had that, I kind of got used to it. You kind of get lax. At least I did. So then to cut back to only $2,000 again was a little scary.
Okay, so you step away from your job. Did the people at your work where you were working, did they think you were a little crazy for leaving your steady income to head off to do this online business?
A lot of them surprisingly seemed pretty supportive. However, I will say when I told my family, I didn't tell them until after I gave my notice because I knew my dad would try to talk me out of it. He just has that parental concern. But afterwards, he was very on board and has been supportive. But my grandma, on the other hand, was like, I don't understand what you're doing on this computer. Are you making real money or is it some kind of fake thing?
I hear that all the time too. Okay, so here's the part I am excited for you to talk about is what is your monthly, and by the way, everyone, I asked her beforehand if I could ask her this, but what does your monthly income with being a virtual assistant look like today?
Today, I am consistently earning over $10,000 per month.
Wow. So you're making $120,000 consistently per year being a virtual assistant. And just a few years ago, you were working, at a great job, but you were making about $25,000 a year.
Right. That's exactly right. Now, you do have to take into things like business expenses, taxes are more. And so that kind of takes out of it some. But it's still really exciting to know that you've built this business where, you're earning $10,000. That's amazing to me. I still get so excited.
I get excited for you because I remember when I had first met you, this was in the summer, I think, of 2015. And I was looking for somebody to help me, and somebody said, "Hey, there's this girl Kayla, and she can do a lot of what you're looking to do." And I think I just sent you a cold email, and I remember you were just getting started, and it's been pretty cool seeing over the last 2 years the growth. But it's also been cool is the part of you've kind of had this like household name in definitely in the financial space for blogging. Is people who are in the personal finance space. They'll say like, "Oh, who do you use?" And I'll say, "Oh, Kayla help." "Oh, yeah, Kayla." Like people know who you are. You've become kind of this like legendary Kayla in the personal finance blogosphere.
It always makes me feel good to hear that, but I get a little, self-conscious about it too, where I'm like, that's so weird that people are talking about me. But it's exciting too. I've been very blessed to have such a strong community that I've kind of fell into. Blogging about personal finance was, my beginning and why I started. And I think it's really a blessing because our community is very tight knit. And so to have that opportunity to have enough work in this one area without having to really branch out has been amazing.
So Kayla, another thing that I know about you that we've talked about in the past is, sometimes your clients aren't going to last forever. And that's true in any business, whether you own a gym or whether you are doing some kind of, personal coaching or virtual assistant. Clients are going to come and go for whatever reason. They might move, right. They might stop blogging, they might change, they might pivot and do something different. So over the years, I'm sure that you've gone through different clients. You've recycled through clients, lost clients, got new clients. So the question I have is, how are you marketing yourself now to keep that pipeline of income coming in?
To be honest, I really don't. Other than having my website up and having a page on there about my services, I really don't market myself anymore. At the beginning, I did. I hustled a lot and I marketed myself. I reached out to people with cold pitches, offered to help them if I noticed they looked overwhelmed or hadn't posted on their blog for a while or, wrote a post about being overwhelmed. I would reach out to them by email. But these days, I really don't. As I was saying, I'm very blessed because my business now grows almost 100% through referrals.
And that is the best way to grow a business because, marketing is one thing, but when you can get marketing through other people who trust you and they tell your friends about you, I think that's by far the best marketing. In our business, in Money Peach, that's one of the best things we've had is when somebody says, "Hey, we took Chris's course. It was amazing." And they tell their friends about it. So that is, I think, still, it's the most old school, old fashioned, but it's still the best way to market anything. And how you do that is you have to provide good, consistent value. So Kayla, I'm just going to share, and correct me if I'm wrong here because I might miss something, but all the things that you do for Money Peach. So it kind of gives the listeners an idea of, what a virtual assistant looks like in my business. So
yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So Kayla is now the blog manager. So you manage the blog and you manage the writers and you assign the posts that will go out to the different writers we have. Yep. And manage that schedule. And then on the podcast side, like we're going to record this right here. And then I put this recording into a Google Drive folder. And then you and Steve, the producer, coordinate how it's going to be all put together and put the post together for it and schedule that as well.
Yep.
Correct? All the images on the site, you 100% do that now.
Yes.
I used to do that, but it's not my strength. I'm not a good image person. So any images that you see on the site, Kayla has done all of those. She does those. And you use, is it Canva?
Yes, I use Canva. That's another great free tool.
Okay, so we'll put links in the show notes to that as well. By the way, the show notes, Kayla puts those together as well. And then just recently, probably in the last 2 months, one thing that you've also helped me out with is sometimes we get a lot of email. And so we have an email account that is set up just for the blog, where if you go to the contact page and fill it out, it goes to Kayla, and then Kayla can scrape, because you get a lot of spam these days. And then Kayla scrapes through there, and then she forwards me she might say like, oh, Chris, I think this is something you might want to look into. So for those of you listening, if you sometimes, don't get a response right away from me, it's because it's going to Kayla, and then Kayla sends it to me. So I think there's that. And then what else do you help me with? You help me with a lot of stuff, which is cool about being a virtual assistant, because there's so many different things you can be doing.
Absolutely. It creates a lot of work for you. It makes it easier for you to find clients the more services you can offer.
Yeah, exactly. And then for a long time, you were doing social media. Yes. And now I've kind of turned you into the social media project manager. And we have somebody else now that's kind of just running purely with social media. And I did that on purpose because I wanted you to just kind of oversee it and have somebody be only focused on social media. So it's been fun growing with you, because a lot of these came because it was your idea. You were like, Chris, you were maxed out here. Would you like me to start replying to email? Oh, you also reply to comments on the blog as well.
Yes.
And
we do and we do some administrative tasks, some account management, invoicing, things like that. I mean, they're basic, but they're important to a business.
There you go. Yeah. So anytime there's money coming in or going out, it goes through Kayla. She does the invoicing as well. So as you can see, Kayla is a huge part of the Money Peach blog and podcast. So at the end of every episode, when I say this podcast would not be possible if it wasn't for Steve Stewart and Kayla Sloan, now you see why I mean that, because still being a full-time firefighter, there's just no possible way that I could do all of this. It just would not happen. I wouldn't be married anymore. That would be for sure. All right. So Kayla, here's the next thing I want to transition into is, how can you help somebody become a virtual assistant to the level that you are, whether they want to make, $1,000 a month and just be able to make a mortgage payment, or make $500 a month and pay for groceries, or make $10,000 a month or more. How can you help somebody accomplish that goal?
I first started out doing some individual coaching, and I still do offer some of that today, but I realized that my time would be better served and I could help more people get started as a virtual assistant and build a business that pays them well and makes them feel fulfilled and excited to do their work every day by creating a self-guided online course. So I've got that set up. It's called 10K VA. You can find it at 10kva.com. It's been a great course because I've had a lot of feedback from students and coaching students already about how they've been able to grow and have their questions answered. We've got a Facebook group that's really engaged and helpful, and we bounce ideas off of each other. So it's been really fun to go through that process and to be able to help people see success in this type of business.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is there anything that you'd be willing to do for Money Peach listeners as far as a freebie? And if not, we'll have Steve edit this out, but I think you're going to be able to do something, right?
Oh, definitely, but only for Money Peach listeners, so don't tell anyone else. Wink, wink.
All right, sounds good.
If you pop over to kaylasloan.com/peach, this will actually redirect you to the course page, and Chris will get a little kickback out of it. Won't cost you anything extra. And then we will also give you $50 off of the course with the code PEACH.
Okay, so the code is PEACH. We'll put the links in the show notes to that. So it's kaylasloan.com/peach.
Yes.
And then just remember PEACH if there's a promo code, and that's $50 off. So awesome. Yeah. So knock off $50 there. And how long is the course? What does it look like?
It has 8 modules. And under each one, there are several lessons to help you get started with setting rates, earning an income, finding your first client. It even walks you through the very beginning stages about what types of skills you need to know or what kind of services you can offer. So it's really great for beginners. And then in later modules, we take you through some of the more complicated things like how to scale your business up and how to even reach that point where you might need to outsource something to someone else. So yes, a VA can have a VA. So it's been a real journey. It takes you through the entire process, and it's self-guided, so you can return to any of the previous modules anytime. So you'll have lifetime access as the course grows and upgrades over time. There's worksheets and downloadable checklists and things like that to help keep you on track.
And what is the price point?
The price point for the basic package is at $297.
Okay, so here's the way I look at it. So $297, so that's $247 with the promo code Peach?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so here's the way I look at it. If you're listening to this, you're thinking, $247. We all, we should be, if we don't, we should be investing or saving for our future, whether we're putting in our 401k or our Roth IRAs. You're going to probably within a year put in more than $247 somewhere in your retirement. And that's going to have a return on investment later in life. So when you retire, you'll have money saved. Mm-hmm. So the way I look at it is sometimes investing in you is even a better return, because if you have no idea how to get started, but you're listening to this going, man, this sounds like something that would be right up my alley. This sounds perfect. And you go and you invest $247 in you. First of all, the fact that you invested in you, you're going to definitely do the work. You're going to learn. You're not going to, go through the program, or you're not going to purchase a program and not take it, so you're going to go through the process. But the cool thing is you're going to learn the same things that Kayla does to make herself earn $120,000 a year, six-figure income, and she does this from home. Now, maybe you don't want to go out and make $120,000. Maybe you just want to work a little bit and make, $1,000 a month. Well, guess what? If it's $247 and you're making $1,000 a month, say a year from now, in between putting the kids down and working, at night or when they're in school or whatever it might be, that's a really good return on investment. So that's the way I always look at it when I'm out there, and I'm constantly learning, Kayla. I'm always looking, at courses. And sometimes recently I just purchased a course. It was $2,000. But I know that the stuff that I'm learning inside the course is going to allow me to use a program that, if things go the way I'm expecting them to go, I know I'm going to be able to generate $2,000 extra in this next year using this program. So it was a good return on investment. So keep that in mind. If you're somebody that's kind of on the fence, but you're stuck and you want to do something, you're not sure what it is, this is, I think, just such a wonderful opportunity. And another thing is, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but it seems like more and more people are starting their own blogs and starting their own YouTube channels, and they're creating their own social network and they're following. With that said, guess what they're going to need? They're going to need help because they can't do it all themselves, and they're going to need a virtual assistant. Every single blogger friend of mine that's in a mastermind with me or that I know, every single one of them has more than one, or I would say at least one virtual assistant, but has many assistants inside their business. And so there is a definite need for you. Like I would say right now we have a shortage of virtual assistants. So take advantage of the Peach $50 discount. Thank you, Kayla, for doing that. That's my rant. I'm going to stop.
Yes, I agree. There's a shortage of quality virtual assistants for sure.
Absolutely. All I know is quality, so I can't compare. That's all I know. All right, Kayla, thank you so much for coming to the show. This was great. It's fun to have you on the show because you have seen the inner workings, the behind the scenes. You've seen me when I go crazy and I mess up and I do all these, everything wrong. But it seems like the next morning when I wake up, Kayla fixes it all. And it's like, oh, thank goodness. So thank you so much for coming on the show. This was excellent. I'm excited for some of our listeners who are thinking about taking that next step to becoming a virtual assistant or even learning to getting started with you. So thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything that Kayla and I talked about can be found over at moneypeach.com/session80. That's moneypeach.com/session80. Special thanks goes out to my producer, Steve Stewart, and of course, my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would not be possible. Stay tuned next week with another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. Take care. Boom, 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 boom.